when everybody, during the time when we was on lockdown in 2020, when everybody had to stay in their houses or whatever, that's when things got real. People understood, oh man, this shit real. We can't go nowhere. That's when people wanted to take spirituality serious. Now you fast forward all the way up to 2024, people done fell off their spiritual journey. They waiting for some shit to happen. You can't do that. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's like you got one foot in a simulation, and then you got one foot in spirituality. You got to pick one side. You know what I'm saying? Like, you don't just wait for some shit to happen to be spiritual. This whole planet is spiritual. Everything is all about, you know, connecting with your higher self. That's the thing, though. People wait for some shit to happen. But when it comes to, I forgot, I was looking at the black codes. I seen something about the black codes. But yes, I looked up the black codes. I did a demonstration on that, talking about the rise of the matriarch. But the black codes is where the police get their policies from. The 1724 Black Christian codes that works in tandem with the Draconian Constitution that is being facilitated by the Jesuit oath and the bloody oath of secrecy. This is why the police, the policy enforcers of the Black Christian codes, they propagate Black degradation, right? Because it's all about blood rituals. This is why they do what they do. Because it's, you know, from a analytical standpoint, we all know that, you know, when you study logistics and stuff, Europeans actually get killed by police more than so-called Black people. But they push the ideology in the media towards us because it's a form of a ritual. It's an energy extraction. It's blood magic. It's Babylonian blood magic. That's what they propagate. That's what that's all about. Yeah, I mean, you could say it's policy enforcement because one thing you gotta understand about they operating outside of constitutional fold of government, so that's international violation rules. So international violation rules mean that they're basically outside of law. They don't have the ability to propagate law on indigenous land because, like I said, it's a part of the de facto corporation, right? They don't have jurisdiction over us. The only way they have jurisdiction over you if you go into the voting. You want the reparations. You want the goddamn carrot on a stick. That's what that's all about. It's a form of semantics and technology to take you out of your sovereign capacity. I got some super chats. Let me see. Salute to Fontello. Let me see. Salute to Miss News. I appreciate you guys. But we still want to get some questions. If you're going to send a super chat, you can put a question inside there too. A lot of your dreams is operated by way of the doctrine of signatures of nature. So if you understand nature, you will understand your dreams intrinsically because the great majority of our dreams, they have certain animals, they have certain forms of synchronicities and numerology in them because, like I said, the universe is mathematical. But you can't look at it from a commercialized standpoint because the great majority of the information that they put on the internet has basically is commercialized, but the real information is being redacted. But so you got to tap into ancient Vedic numerology to understand if you start to see synchronicities in your dreams, start to see certain animals in your dreams. That's when you got to start reading publications, occultic publications. Let me see. Okay, that's another super chat question. My numerology born on the 26th master says I'm always over here. Master numbers, like I said, when you we just went through the Lionsgate portal, 88. So when you look at the number 8, the number 8 is basically a mirror flip of the number 33. right? Which is also a form of mastery. So during this process, while the Lionsgate portal was open up, you're supposed to be reaching the apex of mastery. You're supposed to be working on yourself. You're supposed to be manifesting. That's what makes you a God. Psalms 82, chapter 4. Psalms 82, verse 4. Ye are gods, right? What makes you a God? With a lowercase g. What makes you a God? You have the ability to create and manipulate the simulation. We all have the ability to create. But you know what I'm saying? A lot of chosen ones, they are old souls. A lot of chosen ones are old souls, because that's why the great majority of us who are the black sheep of the family, we actually parents to our own parents. You know what I'm saying? Because we are old souls trapped inside of a young body, and our parents are young souls trapped inside old bodies. It's a reverse of polarity, right? So that's when you talk to your parents and when you talk to your elders and your family, when you call yourself doing things the right way to break away from those generational curses, you getting smart now. I don't like, he getting smart. I don't like that. That means that you're breaking a generational curse that they was all comfortable to. So the awakening process is always going to be uncomfortable. But when you try to propagate that ideology to the family, you know what I'm saying? Now you're the one that's going to be castigated for that very same reason. So like I said, man, it's all about one of those things where your spiritual journey, like I said, you got to be operating from a place of solitude, right? That solitude is going to lead to tunnel vision. That tunnel vision is the portal to your level up. How you going to level up if you hanging out with everybody? How you going to level up if you hanging out with low vibrational people, right? You know what I'm saying? This is where during the process of the Great Awakening period, you got to separate yourself, because it's all a part of the Great Separation. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's one of those things, like, I'm an introvert. You know what I'm saying? Like, me being at the gathering of the masters, that was that was very much outside of my element. You know what I'm saying? I love the energy there, but I'm an introvert. I don't really do stuff like that. But I felt at home when I was at gathering of the masters. I felt like you know what I'm saying? I didn't even want to leave Atlanta. I had a good time. But like I said, hang out by yourself until you get around like-minded people. Hang out by yourself. Get some hobbies that are basically self-affirming, right? Get some hobbies that are basically self-affirming, to where you don't need external stimulation in order to have fun. Like I said, you can have fun by yourself. You ain't got to go to the club. You can go dance at the house, dance by yourself, have a drink of wine. Like I said, just get in the own energy of being by yourself, because the next time we have another lockdown, you know what I'm saying, you're going to have to tap back into that energy. You know what I'm saying? Let me see. I spoke to Asir Dukateers, quite a few times. Yeah, very knowledgeable brother. And I even, I gave him, paid homage to him, because like I said, I've been watching a lot of the people that that I grew up watching since the 8th grade. A lot of them, they embraced me when I was there, so I'm really a branch of who they are. You know what I'm saying? When you look at Red, Blue Pill, Black Dot, Professor Griff, Asir Dukateers, KT the Arch Degree, you know what I'm saying? I'm like, I'm a branch of all these people, because like I said, I've been watching Black Magic's channel since I was in 8th grade, when he was the Underground Railroad Productions. You know what I'm saying? I've been watching that channel for a long time. So for me, to be amongst, some of the greatest minds on the planet, I felt like I deserved to be there. Let me see. I ain't got no super chat questions. Like I said, I ain't got nothing to do today, so we might be on this mug for about 3 hours. Like I said, you can ask me anything you want. I'm chilling. I'm trying to, trying to make myself more relatable to the demographics of people that come to my channel, because there's a lot of stuff that y'all don't know about me. Y'all been wanting to know about me, because the great majority of all my videos is all based on all my transmissions. These are all presentations. So, you know, I just kind of, you know, I felt like I needed to go live. That way people can tap into who I am on a personality level. You know what I'm saying? Because we don't get things like the gathering of the masters like every week or every month or nothing like that. So, like I said, man, ask me whatever. Trying to get some more questions, man. Let me see. Okay. What are the signs of God trying to relocate you? One thing now, be careful with that word God. God, spelled with a capital G, is equated to the God of fortune, because when you go to the H1408 Strong Concordance, the word God is transmuted into the word Gad. Gad is the prefix of the word Gandriel. Gandriel is another nomenclature title for Satan, right? And they propagate that ideology in the book of Enoch. So when you say God, spell God in all caps, because that's the Most High. God with a lowercase g, that is the delineational process of the propagation of Satan, right? God in all lowercase letters, lowercase letters is the Semitic people, because we are a microcosm of the macrocosm. Ye are gods. Psalms 82 verse 4, right? That's what that's basically talking about. So when you're talking about how you figure out that the Most High is trying to relocate you, you know, one thing you got to understand about when it comes to, like, my spirit is telling me to relocate to Atlanta. I don't know if I'm gonna make that happen, or, you know, in the future or whatever, but you know what I'm saying, there's an energy there. You know what I'm saying? But sometimes it's not meant for certain people to relocate. You got chosen ones all over the planet. Sometimes it's not meant for you to move. Sometimes you got to stay stuck where you at in order to reverse the polarity of the subjugation in that landmass. You might be the only person in your city that might be awakened to the knowledge. That's why you got to be there, right? You can't just have everybody in one frequency. But when a planet is going through a state of calamity and the people are in a state of pandemonium, chaos is what's going to bring everybody together in a form of unity. But like I said, chosen ones are spread all over the planet. That's why a lot of us, when it comes to the spiritual journey, we get very lonely. Be like, man, I'm the only one that think like how I do. I'm the only one in my family. Why I'm the only one out of my friends that think like this? It's meant for you, because you're supposed to be used. You're supposed to be used as a resource and a tool to propagate a certain knowledge to where people are starting to follow you. You're supposed to raise up the consciousness in that area. I'm the only one in my city, outside of my girl, I'm the only one in my city that understands this information. Everybody else is fast asleep. Everybody out here is either Christians, Catholics, you know, they stuck in monotheistic religion. They believe in voting and all this other stuff that's connected to the simulation. A lot of times, like I said, it's not meant for everybody, you know what I'm saying, for them to relocate. Sometimes you got to be where you at in order to raise the frequency. And then once you become the catalyst of knowledge, that's when you galvanize the whole, you know, concept of the cosmic convergence to reverse the polarity of patriarchy. So you got chosen ones everywhere. You got chosen ones everywhere. You might be the only one in your city. That's why it's so hard for you, you know what I'm saying, to find, like, oh, I can't, you know, you got a lot of people who just really, you know, settle for less. You know, you might be conscious and you might be dating a girl who's stuck in Christianity, right? And you just only doing that because you settled because of the area where you're located at. Let me see. Let's see some more questions. Now, I did a transmission on this. It's on my page on my YouTube. Now, the diametrical difference between Agenda 21 and Project 2030. Agenda 21 is being facilitated by socialism that leads in a form of democracy and liberalism, right? It's coming from the far right bureaucratic system. And then you have Project 2030. That is basically the propagation of the far right bureaucratic system. So it's really, when you look at the grand scheme of it, the blueprint is being facilitated by the York right and the Scottish right, the white hats and the black hats, right? On an esoteric level. But on an exoteric level, it's Agenda for 21 versus Agenda 2030, Democrat versus Republic. But the propagation of Project 2030 basically subjugates Agenda for 21 because it goes against the degradation of humanity that's coming from the deep state shadow government. Let me see. So that's the difference between the two, because it goes against everything. Agenda for 2030 goes against everything that that the far left is doing. Now, I'm glad you brought this up. When it comes to status correction, that's really there's no reason for you to do status correction right now, because when you have the restoration of the matriarch, you're going to get the land back by way of nature. So status correction, you still got to sign over your nature with paperwork. So when you sign over your nature, that's a blood contract, whether you write it in a pen or pencil. It's still a blood contract because it's under the Draconian Constitution, which puts you under the jurisdiction, under the act of parliament every time you sign over your nature. Just like when people in the music industry, when you sign over your nature, you get these record deals and these movie contracts, right? It's put you under their jurisdiction, right? So if any of y'all do music and you got music contracts and you're an actress or whatever, you signing contracts, when you see the word actor or artist in the contract, cross out actor and artist and put creator, because that's going to give you full autonomy over your creativity, to where they're not able to monetize off your intelligence. So that's why I was a predator. I said we got to get into the fact we got to understand civics. Civics is the technology that they use to put us under a state of subjugation, because a lot of people, they don't understand that canon laws basically is the epitome of ecclesiastical law, because the church and the state is not separate. They work in synergy, right? Which is why the great majority of these organizations and these politicians, they get 501c3s, which is a skull and bones contract from the dark priesthood of the Vatican Church. So we don't need to do that. We don't need to sign over our nature, get status correction. So stop signing papers. Everything in the beginning of fifth dimensional civilizations in the first sun cycle, everything was operated by way of oral tradition. We didn't sign no contracts. Stop signing stuff. Because when you got to get the reparation, you still got to sign over your nature for that, right? That's what your signature is, signing over your nature. Blood oath, bloody oath of secrecy. That's Babylonian blood magic, right? Which is why the Constitution was written in blood by the blood of Crispus Attucks. Do you think you're being watched? I think everybody on some level is being watched. You know what I'm saying? Like, because when you understand the policy and forces of Western civilization, they always looking for some type of messianic figure. That's why a lot of people, when it comes to Nature Boy and Rashad Jamal and Young Pharaoh and people who put this stigma on themselves and they call themselves the Messiah. As soon as you call yourself the Messiah, that's when they're going to come after you. Every time. So you have to, when it comes to manipulating the matrix system, you got to be able to be very meticulous. You got to be incognito, right? You can't be so much to the point where you use the edification of knowledge in a form to where you got people deifying you. I don't want nobody to worship me. I just want to get this information out. You know, just like me and Ryan Hayes was talking about, we really tired of getting online talking about this because the information, the work is already done. But it's up to us to reverse the polarity. You know what I'm saying? We got to start being a lot more proactive. You know what I'm saying? We got to start being proactive. That's why just like I was talking to Rod last night, now when it comes to spirituality and people in the conscious community, the great majority of people have this aesthetic on what spirituality is supposed to look like. Spirituality doesn't have a look. Consciousness doesn't have a look. Enlightenment doesn't have a look, right? So in order to, that's why I say, in order to get out the matrix, you got to basically become a part of the matrix. You got to use the matrix in order to get out. So when it comes to me, I don't wear like a lot of spiritual garments. You know what I'm saying? I got my Moorish headdress and stuff like that. And I got other things, but I don't really like push that because I understand that we live in a different time and frequency right now. The great majority of so-called Black people who are asleep, everything is on a perceptual level to them. So in order to be relatable, you got to look like them. So sometimes the stuff that I wear is really my costume. And when they hear me speak a certain way, that's going to galvanize that person because I'm able to be relatable. Just like Black Dot, when he told me, he said that, I forgot who the speaker was, but he bought a Hennessy bottle at his event and he was drinking the Hennessy as he was spitting the knowledge. The reason he did that is because he had to make himself relatable. And the only reason people stayed is because that damn Hennessy bottle was present during the whole thing. Because you have people in the crowd that drink Hennessy and stuff like that. So sometimes, like I said, you got to use the matrix in order to get out. That's how you pull people out. It's a form of alchemy. You know what I'm saying? Some people like, I'm not going to wear no suits. You know what I'm saying? I'm not going to wear, I'm going to wear what I want to wear. I ain't wearing all types of crystals and stuff like, even though I got that stuff, but that's not what the awakening is all about. The awakening is being a chameleon in a form of balancement. You know what I'm saying? You got to make yourself relatable if you want to wake people up. Some people stray away from consciousness because they think that you got to look a certain way in order to get information. I had one brother ask me, he said, I got to start wearing stuff like that in order, if I start like tapping it, I'm like, nah, look how you want to look. Be yourself. You know what I'm saying? I said, you see how I'm talking to you and you see I'm speaking from a high frequency. Do you see me wearing that type of stuff? No, that's not what it's all about. You know what I'm saying? That's what balance is. That's just like when back in high school, a lot of girls, they wouldn't even talk to you. They'd look at your shoes first before they even talk to you. If you have some dirty shoes on, they'd go away from you, right? That's how I present myself. I know people are very much captivated by materialism. So you got to use the materialism in order to wake people up. That's my costume. So that is basically the apex of authenticity. Authenticity is the highest frequency that's basically above love. Because if you love yourself intuitively, if you love your people intuitively, you will use the tools and the resources to pull them out of their situation. That's what leadership is all about, right? Let me see. I already answered that question. Let me see. Let me see. Y'all can ask me some more questions. I'm going to take about 5 more questions. And then I'm going to have to vacate the premises because I got to get some studying in, because I'm at this moment of time, I'm reading like 4 different publications. And I got this publication that Rod gave me last night that I'm tapping into about the blood rights and stuff like that, and how they use certain organizations to extract our energy by way of the blood rights that's connected to their political system. So I'm doing that. So I got to tap into my studies. So I take that very seriously. Let me see. Wait, I'm looking for a question. Ain't nobody. Okay. When does etymology come into play in the spiritual metaphysical? Etymology comes into play is really when it comes to etymology, that's really good for when you're trying to break down monotheistic religion, when you're trying to understand the esoteric aspect of it, when you want to understand certain words that's being used in the Bible. Etymology is key when you're trying to understand civics. Because like I said, the church and the state is not separate, because when you start to break down these words intrinsically, right? Just like the word Lord is equated to the word lawyer, right? Your landlord, lawyer, that is all connected to the factions of government and the factions of the political system. So etymology is key when you want to understand the esoteric, what's going on behind the scenes. Okay. I'm a thermo engineer. That's what I do. I know how to build extruders, break them down, build them up, work on them. That's what I do. But like I said, I'm tired of working. You know what I'm saying? I'm done with the matrix, bro. Like, totally done. Like, this is what I want to do every day. Like, give people free information. This is what I want to do. But like I said, it's one of those things where you gotta be operating from a place of balancement, because that's the personification of equilibrium. That's what makes you a God. So I have times where I got my job, I got my study days, I got days where I do my reading. I gotta be a dad. I got full custody of my son. All types of stuff. That's what balancement is. You know what I'm saying? That's what makes you a God. In order to balance yourself. Because when you're not balanced, that means that you're operating from a place of dark psychology, which makes you non sequitur, right? Meaning that you're going to be operating from a place of illogical energy. You ever seen somebody who wasn't balanced? You know what I'm saying? They got all these problems in their life. You know what I'm saying? All these problems in their life. So it really comes down to the point where you have to prioritize certain energies. Because if you try to take on too many energies, it's going to put you in a state of over-emotionalism, which leads to depression. And that depression is when these entities can take upon your physiology, because now your nervous system is being manipulated. So yes, I'm a Libra. I'm a triple Libra. But yeah, that's what I do for a living. I'm an engineer. And I did a show with Brother Rich talking about my job. Basically, I even bought this a part of the presentation, because one thing you got to understand, as I was telling you before, the doctrine of signatures of all technology is an emulation of who we are genetically. When you look at an extruder machine, an extruder has 7 different chambers. Those 7 different chambers is equated to the emulation of your chakra system. They just like extruder has a discharge transducer. Your head is the neuroendocrine transducer that shoots out light vibration and it takes in light vibrations of gamma radiation. It has the same thing. So that's where the inception of extrusion and engineering, it actually derived from ancient chemistry, right? So everything is spiritual, but you just got to understand it. You know what I'm saying? Everything is spiritual. Uh, okay. How does speaking, like, all right, for instance, like when you speak, the octave vibration of your voice contains carbon emissions. Carbon is highly magnetic, especially when you operate from a place of tonal languages, because the octave frequency contains silicon and carbon. Those carbon emissions operates with the ethers in a form of magnetism, right? So also manifestation is conducive to the platonic solids, as I was talking about in the 888 Lionsgate portal video that I put out 5 days ago. When you speak certain things into existence, you have to think these thought forms in geometrical shapes, and you trap them and you upload it into the neurological interface. You upload them into the neurological interface and you download it inside your brain computer, right? And that's where the manifestation takes place. It starts with the mind first, right? It starts with the mind because the holonomic brain theory denotes the fact and demonstrates that your neurotransmitters and your neurons in the brain is connected to the quantum world. That's how you manipulate the ethers by way of the quantum world. There's a tethered connection to it. So if your energetic frequency and your thoughts leave an energetic imprint on the universe, that's where you stream down the intelligence, right? You stream down the intelligence and you entrap that energy inside of a geometrical shape, which is a platonic solid. What are your thoughts on the restructuring? In my opinion, I believe, like I said, you got to do, it's one of those things where we got to tap into the energy of homeschooling our kids again. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm done with the whole infrastructure of, westernized anything. I don't rock with this system at all. I'm anti-Western civilization because everything that they teach you, what I'm saying, like, is actually, backwards. It's an inverted frequency. Let me see. And if you was in here from the Gathering of the Masters and you met me, I appreciate you guys. It was a great turnout. It was a great turnout. Yes, through your pineal gland and pituitary gland. But the hypothalamus gland, the master gland, the pituitary gland, and the pineal gland is basically the embodiment and the blueprint that's connected to the three suns that creates the energy of the Lionsgate portal. Just like I said in my last video, just like you have a portal opening up in the atmosphere, you have a portal opening up in your mind. That's how you manipulate the simulation for manifestation. Whatever, you got to put those thought forms, but you can't just not be proactive. You got to be proactive during the process of your manifestation. You got to do the legwork. You don't just sit down and manifest, you know what I'm saying, without doing no work. Let me see. The Crystal City, I even did a demonstration on this. The Crystal City is not only subjected to hollow earth theory when you're talking about the city of Shambhala and Agartha. You are the Crystal City, right? You are the Crystal City because when you understand the bioluminescent frequency of the carbonated body, what happens is it has to transmute into carbon-6, which is 6 electrons, 1 photon, 6 protons, 616. So when you become a crystalline state, that creates the bioluminescent frequency that lights up your whole etheric light body, right? Which is your Merkaba light ship. So the Crystal City in itself is not only a actual place, but we are the Crystal City, right? Because like I said, it's like you have a macrocosm, you have a microcosm. because the ancients, they understood, they built their civilizations based upon the infrastructure of who we are genetically. That's why when you see certain things, you'd be like, damn, like that reminds me of the chakra system. Oh, damn. That looks just like that monolithic structure reminds me of the pineal gland. Everything they built is to remind you of who you are. I'm gonna get to 2 more questions and then I'm gonna head on out. Now, one thing, when you chosen, you have a certain energetic frequency that when you walk into the room, the energy shift. When you have the ability to do that, that's what makes you chosen, because being chosen is basically an unspoken language because it operates from a place of mysticism. You ever seen somebody where people just, they don't like that person and you don't understand why, and they don't have no reason to not like that person? Those are the chosen ones, the ones that's not liked for no reason, right? Because your energy and your frequency and your vibration disrupts they demons, right? Because a lot of people, when it comes to that, like, being chosen, like I said, it's a gift and a curse, because you got to deal with a lot of bullshit that comes with it. You got to deal with a lot of bullshit. You got to be a parent to your parents. Well, I ain't got to be a parent to my parents. I got really good parents, but when it comes to this knowledge, they don't understand the things that I understand. You know what I'm saying? But when you chosen, what I'm saying, like I said, everything is going to, people are going to castigate you. They're going to scrutinize you. They're going to ostracize you, especially at your job. They're going to do all types of mechanisms to knock you off your path. So everybody, like I said, everybody is not chosen, because, like I said, you can tell when you're around somebody who's highly magnetic. You know what I'm saying? But you walk in a room, everybody's staring at you. You know what I'm saying? That's because, they're trying to basically read your frequency. And when people don't have the ability to read you, that's when they become combative. If people can't read your frequency and you operate from a place of mysticism, they always want to be in your business, but they can't find out about you, right? You are the chosen one. You know what I'm saying? People are always trying to compare themselves to you, competing with you for no reason. That's how you know that you're chosen. Everybody ain't got that chosen one frequency. Let me see. Salute to Kentucky. I'm right by Kentucky. I'm on the demarcation line of Kentucky and Indiana. Salute to Kentucky. Okay, I'll give y'all some book recommendations. I think I got some books in. Let me see. Let me see here. Right now I'm reading Breaking the Spell by Dr. Malachi Z. York. Read that. Read this book called Taken. It's called The Inside of the Alien Abduction Agenda by Carla Turner. The ISIS Thesis by Judy K. Mikovits. Read that. Read The Circle 7 if you want to get like some monotheistic spiritual breakdowns, because you can always get some edification from some type of monotheistic books. Let me see, because this is the only thing I got. This is all my library. All these books you see, these are all books. I got thousands of books on here. But my personal library, like, I ain't got all my actual books. I got a lot of physical books. If you want to get an understanding about the Canaanite bloodline, read The Sons of Canaan by Dr. Malachi Z. York. If you want to get a intuitive breakdown about the book of Revelation, read L's Holy and Jill. It's an esoteric level of the book of Revelation. Read that publication. Very great book. Okay, I got some super chats in. Let me see. All right. If I'm a so-called black and Mexican, no, not exactly. And the reason I say that is because, like, the word black is really a status identification marker that's connected to the caste system of Western civilization that is being controlled by the dark priesthood of the Vatican Church by way of ecclesiastical law and maritime law that works in tandem with the canon laws, which is a corporate internal code under commercial law. So when you call yourself black or Mexican or whatever, you had indigenous Mexicans, just like you had indigenous so-called black people who are basically the Native Americans, right? So really, like I said, it's under the same umbrella. But one thing, when it comes to genetics, you also got to understand that the father is the one who bears the seed. But that, I guess you could say that makes sense though. But it doesn't affect your melanin though. As long as you got that one drop of blood, you're basically considered human. And salute to Ace Jones. Salute to you, brother. Appreciate you. Yep, they not like us. They not like us. Let me see. All right, now I can get to the movie. Okay. Yep, that's a fact. You need physical book. That's why when you watch these videos, you're supposed to be writing notes, bro. Like you ain't supposed to be, on like I got books and notes on my pad and stuff like that, but I got physical notes and I got books. You know what I'm saying? Because that's the only way you can pass down the intrinsic information about who we are historically, you know what I'm saying, and spiritually. You can't, when the grid goes down, there is no technological devices. You won't be able to operate a vehicle after the year of 1975. So that's how bad it's going to get when it comes to, the grid going down. Everybody's not prepared for that. And that's when you're going to have the smorgasbord for the archonic forces to come to the surface of the planet, and they're going to feed on certain individuals who are operating from a low vibrational state. But that's a whole other topic. We ain't talking about that right now because we ain't at that time right just yet. But it's going to get weird. It's going to keep getting weirder and weirder as we go through this great awakening process. Just like that guy, that white guy who disappeared, he had a device to where he was able to see these entities and these archonic forces or these draconian reptilians that don't take corporeal form because they hide themselves by way of the liquor crystal polarization, by way of technology, by hiding themselves through subatomic energy and subatomic particles, because we live in a pixelated simulation. So the more the planet wakes up, it's going to crack open that dome. When the dome cracks open, that's where the photon structure in the spectrum of it is going to have to reverse its polarity, right? Meaning that it's going to eradicate the photon-like spectrum. And you're going to be able to see these beings, right? So, like that's why I said, the more we get through this great awakening period, it's going to get weirder and weirder. So prepare for what is to come. You know what I'm saying? Prepare. Get your water and all that stuff ready. You know what I'm saying? It's better safe than sorry. You got people talking about they ready for the great awakening and all this stuff that happened, and they ain't even been hitting the gym. You know what I'm saying? You got this knowledge, but can you fight? What, you know what I'm saying? Like, what if somebody pull up and they want to throw hands? You can't fight. You know what I'm saying? You don't have no type of artillery. You know what I'm saying? It's not just about the knowledge. It's about, like I said, it's balancing. Because you know what I'm saying, when it comes to the information, at the same time, a lot of people, they gonna, you know, the information that you're gonna put out is basically gonna make people combative, and they're gonna attack you for it. So you gotta have the hands. You know what I'm saying? You gotta stay in shape. That's what it's all about. You gotta be prepared on all levels. You can't just be prepared just on the knowledge. Yeah, the premonitions is operating by way of the ethers being activated. Because, like I said, our thoughts leave an energetic imprint on the universe. And these thought forms have to materialize. And sometimes they come in a form of a dream, or they come in a form when you just meditate and you get a download. You know what I'm saying? Like, we really got to prepare. It's another thing. We have to, you know, start seeing more of our people in the gym. Every time I go in the gym, I'm like the only brother in there. I don't see no type of so-called black women in the gym. We got to start getting in the gym. We got to start taking care of ourselves, because, like I said, the grid goes down. You know, that's when all shit is going to hit the fan. People are going to be operating from a place of self-preservation, where they're going to have to galvanize their resources, right? So you're going to have an autonomous system in order to protect yourself. What if you have to go out and you running from some you running from a demographic of people who is trying to infiltrate your camp? You know what I'm saying? You got to vacate the premises. You can't even run a mile. You can't run 2 miles, right? So that's why I say you got to get in the gym. You got to work on yourself, because, like I said, it's going to come down to the point where you got to. Now, one thing I can't do, I can't swim. That's one thing I need to work on. I need to learn how to swim before 2030, because if I don't know how to swim, it's a wrap. Because in case I got to jump off a boat or something. But you know what I'm saying? You got to be prepared. So that's one thing I'm working on myself. That's my goal. I can do enough to where I can jump off a diving board and doggy pedal back to the side, but I need to learn how to swim. That's my personal goal for myself. But yeah, that's all a part, man. You got to be balanced, bro. You got to, you know, like I said, somebody trying to attack you, you got the hands. It's time for you to swim. Okay, I can swim to the other end of the shore so I can be safe. Okay, now they can't manipulate me through politics, because I got the knowledge on that. Now I know who's who and what's what, because I understand the esoteric knowledge. You got to be balanced on all levels to survive the Great Awakening. It ain't just all about just reading books. Books is just a catalyst for knowledge, and the application of knowledge is the precursor to enlightenment, right? So that's what that's all about. The system is crumbling, like you said. Shout out to Mark Francisco. Let me see. I'm gonna get one more question in, because we already at the 2-hour mark. I'm gonna get one more question in, and then I'm gonna go ahead and dip out, because I got to do some reading. I already answered a question about gang stalking already. Okay, we can talk about the Hyksos. The Hyksos is basically a derivative of the Canaanite bloodline that infiltrated ancient Kemet, where they introduced cannibalism to the Kemites. So that was the beginning points of the infiltration of the patriarchal order, right? When you're talking about the Hyksos, the Greeks and the Ptolemies and things of that nature, because we all know that the Hyksos were the same beings that was kicked out of ancient Kemet when they were, because some of those beings, they were genetically spliced in 4086 BC on the island of Patmos, or you could say the island of Peline. They were genetically spliced, and that's why they go through the ritual in Freemasonry. When you have the cable toe around the neck, which is basically the embodiment of a tie, when you wear a business suit, the cable toe around the neck, your eyes blindfolded with the pants leg up, which is the symbolism for a vagabond. A vagabond is a wanderer, because these Canaanite and these Hyksos, they don't have a homeland. When you break down the etymology of the word Khazar, it means wanderer. A wanderer comes from the land of Nod. The land of Nod is also the embodiment of planet Saturn. Planet Saturn is also known as the place where the Saturnians came in. When you're talking about the 200 fallen angels, which is 1/3 of the galaxy that went against the order of Anu and they fell from grace, which is basically the precursor to the cherubim, which is also known as Black Draconian archonic forces. So the first Canaanites were actually black. That's what I'm saying, because it's all there's a process that takes place when you're talking about gene splicing. It's I think it's an 800-year process when they facilitated that analogy or whatever. But but the first Canaanites were actually black, and then you break down the black gene and all the way down to the pale gene and things of that nature. And the pale gene is where you got the Hyksos came from. That's when they infiltrated ancient Kemet. So that's why the black Canaanites, or the Blackamoor, they gave the edification to the pale-faced Hyksos, right? That's why when you read, when you look at Freemasonry, they're basically a derivative of the Moorish paradigm, right? Because they use the edification that they got from the Blackamoors to steal your birthright when they came over here and stole the indigenous land. That's why I showed in the publication of the 1848 Supreme Court decision, it said that the original mound builders of the geographical landmass of America are the title holders for 1 million square miles. A million square miles. 1 million square miles, that's 640 million acres of land. That's basically all of America and then some, right? I got a super chat question. Let me see. But the Hyksos, okay. I received a download from the sun on the 8 right before your video. The best way, take blackberries. Blackberries, it activates the melanocytes. So the melanocytes, once they're activated, take blackberries before you go to bed. Anything that's conducive to the conscious energy grid of your chakra system, when you're talking about the hypothalamus gland, is going to activate that master gland. Eat blackberries. It helps you remember your dreams. Make sure you get some ones that got seeds in them too. Also, you can take colloidal silver or monatomic gold. It can basically reverse engineer the calcification of the pineal gland. One more question and I'm out. I'm definitely going to do more lives, and I appreciate you guys for tapping in. I'm going to do one more question though. And then, on top of that, make a dream journal. That way you can remember. Salute to Lyra. The feminine energy on the planet is happening right now because we're in the sun cycle, right? Because the lunar cycle of patriarchy, it basically extracts energy from the women, right? Which is why the women have a menstrual cycle, right? Because in ancient times, the word, the E used to be interchangeable with the word, with the letter O. So your menstrual cycle is your menstrual cycle. MON is connected to the energy of the moon. Women are not supposed to have menstrual cycles, right? You're not supposed to have menstrual cycles. But just like I said in my last video, if you want to make your, as a woman, if you want to make yourself more highly magnetic, Up your intake of iron, especially if you're an indigenous woman with carbon in your physiology. Makes yourself highly magnetic to the point where you're not subjugated by the lunar like frequency, which is the silver key. The silver key is a representation of the moon. So the divine feminine energy right now on the planet is operated by the age of Aquarius under the sun cycle, which is the restoration of the matriarch. Sometimes, this is one thing when it comes to the biggest misconception, sometimes the ringing in your ear is not only subjected to something spiritual, it can be something wrong with your physiology, meaning that you have nanometals in your body. So a lot of times these nanometals is operating through a frequency light spectrum that you can't see. You got many different frequencies from technology, technological devices. Sometimes it can just be your physiology being manipulated as your body is trying to unlock certain codons. So, like I said, if you want to extract a lot of the metals from the body, up your intake on chlorophyll. But I'm about to end it. Let me see. I think I got another super chat quick. And salute to you, Autumn. I appreciate you. But I'm about to end this transmission. And I appreciate you guys for watching. And at the next gathering of the masters, you definitely got to be at the next one. I don't know if it's going to be one next year or in the next 2 years or whatever, but you should have been there. It was, it was hot energy. The Lionsgate portal was opened up. You had everybody coming from many different cities. And like I said, that was just a small fraction of your 144,000. So that's why the energy in the building was so intense. You know what I'm saying? You had, Queen of Fools, she was up there speaking. She had so everything within this holographic universe, like everything is basically cube shaped. Everything is basically the personification of the hexahedron that basically subjugates your whole auric field, which is your dodecahedron, your etheric field. So everything is really to block out the energy so you're not able to reap the benefits of those electrical transmissions and those plasma energies that's coming from the star polarities. So all this is acclimated to the Black Sun prophecy. All this is connected to the Leviathan prophecy because, as I was saying before, whether if it's minuscule or it's very trivial or mundane, it doesn't matter. Everything is all connected. So that's my perspective on that. Everything is really just an energy extraction to where you're not able to tap into those etheric energies.
So do you believe it's the sun that is activating these powers in certain people?
Well, when you understand the two celestial bodies within the infrastructure of the simulation, the sun and the moon are basically amplifiers and buffers and converters that operates on fractions of light that is extracted from the star Polaris. The star Polaris is what I call the galactic sun, and that galactic sun is basically the epitome of the transmission that's hitting the planet. And that in itself is going to create a form of ionization. And when you have that ionization, it manipulates the energy grid system. So that basically dismantles the liquid crystal polarization within third density. Because when you go to not Revelation, but Genesis in the Bible, it talks about how Satan separated the intergalactic waters from the third dimension. But the reason I said Satan, because when you understand the esoterics of the word God with a capital G and lowercase letters, that is basically Enlil according to Sumerian mythology. So when you separate everything like the fifth dimension from third density, that creates that photon spectrum. That photon spectrum is connected to subatomic energy. That subatomic energy is how you basically subjugate the energy that's coming from the star Polaris. So it's a spiritual cutoffs because everything as far as the spiritual sun, it is basically the personification of magnetism. Because as I was telling people before in the last video I had, your magnetism is your magic. That's how you tap into certain spiritual abilities. So that firmament is basically the problem. That firmament is the spiritual cutoff. This is why it happens in increments. Sometimes we were able to tap into a level of telepathy. We're able to tap into a level of telekinesis and things of that nature, psychometry, clairvoyance. We don't have those abilities intrinsically. It's because of the firmament. But according to the Black Sun prophecy, when you have the Black Sun working in conjunction and unifying with the star Polaris, that's going to put the green electrical field over the planet. It's a green emerald. It basically gives a certain vibration to the Schumann resonance that operates in tandem with the heart chakra. So you got to be operating from a place of authenticity and the love frequency in order to tap into those energies. So everything that you're seeing right now, as far as like, with the incident that happened yesterday with the 47th president that's going to be in office pretty soon.
Polaris, I believe it's Polaris or the Big Dipper and the Little Dipper. It makes a sigil in the sky. I don't want to say it, but I'll show here.
Oh,
and this,
wow.
well, I mean, this book is The Empire on Which the Black Sun Never Sets, because the Third Realm was very into. What's up, Ani? the third. What's up?
With y'all, man?
Hey, we're live on YouTube, Ani, so we got to keep it a little, not too PG, but just a little.
That's cool, man. What's
I'm gonna get in trouble.
My question for BDELL is that Polaris seems to be very important to the ancients. Even the Georgia Guidestones had a little glory hole, I call it, that pointed straight to Polaris. Polaris, it doesn't move. So we can see that this is an important symbol, an important star, or whatever it is. And so whenever this aligns at a certain time, things change. I forget where I was going with that. I'm just excited to be here.
Yeah, a lot of the reason that's in correlation actually, because a lot of the stuff happens when you at the close of an age, and it all works in tandem with the precessional circle of the equinox. So,
there's a strong connection to Polaris too with Nibiru, and with the whole power thing. Some people believe it's an allegory. Other people believe it actually is talking. I always love to hear your theories. And one thing you told me a long time ago that changed how I podcast. You told me certain people weren't able to have conversations. Like they just had to be in echo chambers and only hear what they could believe. But the real good people, they could have conversations. Even if they didn't believe something somebody was talking about, they could still have that conversation. And when you mentioned that in a live before with us, and that really resonated with me in, the way I interview now, because we're not all going to agree on everything. And if you got someone just trying to, tear down a person's theory or something, it kind of makes the podcast suck,
Right.
So that really stuck with me. And you said it much better. It sounded more intelligent when you said it. Way more intelligent. But could you break down your theory on the DNA activation, what you think about it?
Yeah, I think it's a theomorphic consciousness. It's a term that a new Gnostic sect was coming up with in the late 60s with some of the Bertio movement and things that came out of the Kenneth Grant sects as well, where they were saying that there will be an aeon of people who unlocked certain abilities spiritually. So that's why when you ask me about Supercell and me looking at the show, and when we did the last breakdown of abilities, I believe it's more spiritual than it's somebody actually flying or these things. Now, there are texts going back to slavery that melanated people